Times Square, Kevin McCullough, very glad to have you with us, and we are getting ever, ever closer to the end of this cycle. I know, in your head, this presidential campaign has lasted about 4,293 million years, but I promise you, we are in the final stretch, and it's not going to be that much longer, and we're going to have, I think, I'm predicting this, I'm telling people, shh, don't tell anybody else, it's a secret. America is going to have a big night on election night. Mostly because you're doing the hard work and going out and getting the votes now. You're banking your votes in Arizona. You're banking your votes in the places where it needs. They're not going to be able to say, oh, well, we had a printer go out of operation in, the biggest Republican county in Phoenix. No, that's not going to happen this time. We're going to be on top of it. Anyway, along those lines, down the stretch, you've now seen both candidates appear on podcasts, and you even got Kamala Harris to sit down with Fox News. Nobody thought that was going to happen. And here to discuss some of the closing round arguments from the two sides is Hilton Beckham. She is the Director of Communications for the America First Policy Institute. I love these guys. I've loved them from day one that they were founded. They became one of my favorite go-to think tanks, mostly because, Hilton, let me just say, you're not confused about who you are as an organization. When, certain colleges and certain longtime standing think tanks in DC that I've had great relationships with and worked very well with, but when they put people in their ranks that say, you know what, we just can't tell a difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. So because we don't have a personality grudge against Kamala Harris, we're going to tell people to vote for her. I'm sorry, you lose my respect at that point. We're in the middle of a cultural battle. And you got to decide which side you're on, and then you got to fight for that. So you got to actually wear the uniform for your team. You guys never seem to be confused about that. So thank you.
No, we are never, ever confused. Thank you for saying that. We are always America first. And we know right now it's really not, Democrat versus Republican. It's really just good versus evil. And we want to be on good side and pushing that gospel message out.
I have a hard time understanding how people that served in Republican administrations and longtime, conservative icons in the conservative movement can say that voting for Kamala Harris is okay in this go around. Have they not paid attention to any of her policies? I mean, this is why the Bret Baier interview was so critical, that we finally got, after all the things that she had done, where it was like softball after, you finally got a journalist that said, but 3.5 years, you've been there 3.5 years. Overall, how do you think she's ending her, all of 100-day campaign that she's going to have run, not having received any primary votes or anything else, but she's going to close this thing out here. How would you perceive that she's done?
No, it's, truly historic. I always want to remind people back before she became the presidential nominee through 0 votes, like you just said, I remember when the far left media would ask Nancy Pelosi would ask Democrats, hey, do you think Joe Biden should keep Kamala on the ticket? She was that unpopular, and Democrats couldn't give a straight answer for it. So the fact that she went from that to where she is now, where she is the presidential nominee, and the far left media is literally trying to drag this woman across the finish line. You could just see it in all of their reporting. But no, it's truly remarkable. And I think that's something that was kind of interesting that Donald Trump pointed on in the Univision town hall when they said, hey, can you name something good about Kamala? And he was like, she's a survivor for sure. I don't know how she got to where she is, but she did. I mean, that is one thing about Kamala that we can all agree on. But I don't know about you, Kevin. You tell me if I'm wrong. We're all saying it's a tight race. It is. But part of me, I'm not super worried. There's just something in the air that she just doesn't have the energy. I think we see it with Barack Obama and everyone.
My very, elite thinking columns on Sundays at townhall.com, because over the last 3 weeks, what I've done is I've tried to summarize what happens during that week that continues to deplete momentum from her ranks and has given it to Donald Trump. But if you look at all of the indicators, and I got to put a parenthesis on this was true in 2020 as well. If you looked at all the outlying factors, all the indicators that people would normally look at, Donald Trump was set up, he was poised to not only win big, but add to the number of voters that he got in his first term, which has never been done in the modern era. He got that part of the equation. He got 14 million more votes in his second election than he did in his first. But because of the funny COVID business where they had mailed a ballot to anything that had a pulse and a lot of things that didn't, you ended up having a lot of ballots, a lot of ballot standards that were legally changed. So the media thinks it has a straight face when it says they didn't cheat. It was the most honest election ever. Well, it was only the most honest election ever because you changed all the rules as to how you were going to count everything. But if you had in Nevada, for example, you could take a black marker and just make a X for your signature on the ballot, and that would match your signature that was on record, even though it looked nothing like it. Yeah, you could get a few more votes in there. Here's the thing, and this is why you're feeling what you're feeling. You've got back to normal or mostly normal rules for most of the states that had the COVID protocols. You've got increased Republican registration, and you still got that Trump base that's going to turn out, and don't tell anybody this, more votes than he got in his second election, which is more than he got in his first election. He's going to catapult himself to another level of incumbency with this, because it's going to be the most votes that any non-incumbent incumbent who should have been the incumbent has ever gotten. And that's why I think you're feeling that way. And I think if you kind of like get a sense of where the country is at, you're getting that feeling as well. I just sense that there's, even here in New York, there's just a sense that Donald Trump's going to win this election.
Yeah, I know there is a softening happening in New York and California. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but I love that he's going to those states and talking to people there. I think those two states especially got hit so hard with illegal immigration. The fact that we had liberal leaders in those states calling out, well, I mean, Chicago and New York City, they were calling out to the Biden administration saying, what is going on? You have to stop this flood of illegals. I went up and interviewed people, citizens or community members in New York City asking, what do you think about all these illegals that are here? They were liberal and they were like, I don't know what's going on. Are they being vetted? What's happening? They weren't happy about it. And a lot of people didn't even want to be put on camera because they were so upset and they didn't want their face out there and they're scared to speak out about it. So I think there's a real softening that's happening. And also too, I don't know if you feel this way, part of me is starting to think that, you know, how Kamala always starts telling all these stories when she talks, and you know it's because she doesn't have an actual answer to the question that's being asked. I think story time Kamala is putting voters to sleep, to be honest. And they're just like not energized to go to the voting polls because it's just like no one even knows what you're talking about. They kind of tune out when you talk. Your base, I mean, of course, you're going to have the crazy far left people who are going to vote for Kamala no matter what. But the people that she's supposed to really bring over to her side, you're putting them to sleep with all these story times and with all the same things we've heard over and over again. And you're not, you know, shifting the needle over to your side at all with all of these soliloquies that you keep giving.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about some of the unique ways this election cycle has changed. And I think maybe in kind of a permanent direction. We'll do that more with Hilton Beckham when we come right back. She's with the American First Policy Institute. I'm Kevin McCullough. We're live from Times Square.